Yo, amateur lore here. So we're about a quarter of a way through the 2025 college football season, and some teams have been really disappointing while others have been impressive/surprising. So let's take a look at some of those teams. I'm probably missing some teams who you think should be here, so comment it down below, because I plan on making more videos just like this. Like and sub if you enjoy the tent. Now let's jump right into the video. Let's start this video off by taking a look at some of the teams who I felt like personally haven't been too good a quarter of a way through the 2025 college football season. Alright, it shouldn't be a shock to anybody familiar with this channel and me that I'm a huge Florida Gator fan and have been since I was a little baby sleeping in my crib wearing Gator booties. And speaking of booty, that is exactly what this 2025 Florida Gator football team has been. I really don't know where to start because there have been very few bright spots so far this year. The Gators offense legit looks like the 2022 Denver Broncos. They can't finish drives, they can't extend drives, and time after time they go 3 and out after the defense does their job and gets a stop. For example, in their game versus Miami, I felt so bad for the Gator defense because they actually did a pretty good job at containing this explosive Miami offense, holding Carson Beck, who's been electric so far this season, to under 161 yards and forcing him to throw a pick. But it was all for nothing because the Florida offense would go 0-13 on third downs and only total 141 yards of offense. Don't ask me what Lagway was doing because I really don't know. I didn't think he could play any worse after tossing 200 interceptions against LSU, but credit to him, he proved me wrong because he did play worse, just in an entirely different way this time, which honestly just shows how versatile he is at quarterback. One game he throws a million picks, then the next he throws the ball 23 times for only 61 yards. He looks scared back there in the pocket and very indecisive like my girl when it's time to eat. I didn't think sophomore slumps even existed in college football. I thought that was just an NFL saying. His confidence looks like it went through the water cycle and is evaporating because where the hell did it go? There is a big part of me that wants to put all the blame on the Nathaniel Hackett of the NFL, Billy Napier, because his play calling and game management / situational awareness is fucking awful. Scott Strickland needs to drug test Coach Napier ASAP because some of the things he does makes me think he's shooting up some of that dope in the bathroom before games. I don't know how else to explain it. In all of my life, I've never seen a coach get more delay of game penalties after a commercial or kickoff more than Coach Napier. There was a moment in the Miami game where after an injury timeout that went for almost 3 minutes late in the fourth quarter, Florida would nearly take a delay of game penalty having to burn one of their crucial timeouts because they were not prepared after having a 3-minute injury timeout. Shit like that really makes me wonder who's banging who over at Gainesville, because how else does this man still have a job? As much as he sucks though, he can't get all of the blame. Some of that has to fall back on Lagway because at the end of the day, the most important position in sports is quarterback, and you need your guy to play good for your team to have any shot at succeeding. And pretty much besides the first game of the season against Long Island University, he's looked ridiculously average. No clue where all the deep shots and big plays went, but when you find them, please let me know. The Florida Gators have been awful to begin the 2025 college football season, having a record of 1-3 and currently riding a 3-game losing streak, which to be honest, I don't see how that streak doesn't extend to like 4 or 5, with the game versus 10th ranked Texas right around the corner, followed by a match with 9th ranked Texas A&M. It's going to be a long, disappointing season for the Florida faithful. Emphasis on that disappointing because I really had high hopes for this squad. They came into the season ranked in the top 15, their O-line/D-line graded out well, a lot of preseason outlets had Lagway as one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, which sounds a little crazy now, but it's true. And some dumb YouTuber named Amateur Lore even predicted Florida to make the college football playoffs in his preseason predictions. What an asshole, he couldn't be any more wrong. Whoever leaves the funniest comment about how ass Florida has been this year will win a mini helmet. I'm dead ass. It's the least I could do for having the goal to put Florida in as one of my 12 teams to make the playoffs. Overall, the Florida Gators have been one of the most disappointing teams a quarter of a way through the college football season. I do want to end this little intro on a positive note, which is the defense looks solid, and running back Jordan Baugh is a stud. Not the one that wears his strap, but the one that balls out. I really hope he doesn't transfer after this year, but I wouldn't blame him if he did. Besides that, this Gator team is complete grease trap water. From my favorite college football team, we march our way over to the team my profile pic played for, the Kansas State Wildcats, for the next disappointing team in this video. Really quick, am I bad luck? Why are 2 teams I'm loosely tied with playing like BBL Drizzy to start the college football season? This shit is getting spooky. For the K-State Wildcats, I'm not really knocking them for their week 0 loss against Iowa State in Ireland. They were playing in an entirely different continent and they matched up with a pretty good 22nd ranked Iowa State football team. But winning 38-35 against FCS school North Dakota, which if you watch that game, you know that K-State got blessed by the Greek gods because they should have lost that game. Losing to Army 24-21, not being able to stop their rushing attack in the second half, as Army would go on 3 separate drives where they would chew up at least 7 minutes and 20 seconds of clock, and losing to Arizona 23-17. In a game where the offense just looked inept, only totaling 193 yards and not really making anything happen until the third quarter. This Wildcat team has some serious problems all over the field. They came into the season ranked 17th in the country and was one of my favorites to win the Big 12 conference and potentially be a dark horse playoff contender. But they might not even make a bowl game with the way they're playing. Quarterback Avery Johnson has been extremely streaky so far this year. He had 2 games versus Army and Arizona where the ball would be in his hand with less than 2 minutes on the clock and he couldn't deliver when his team would really need him to. And I expected this year he'd make that jump to be the guy to bring his team home in these big games, but that just hasn't been the case. And on the flip side, usually when things are not going too smoothly for the offense over at K-State, the defense has always usually had their back and played physically sound football, but not this year. In 2025, I don't even recognize this Wildcat defense to start the season. In all 4 games they played so far, they've allowed over 100 plus rushing yards. And in their last 2, they've allowed over 200 yards in rushing in both, giving up 237 to Army and 234 to Arizona. No wonder Kansas State is also getting dominated in the time of possession battles. When you can't stop the run and get off the field, you're going to get gashed and owned in the time of possession battle, which in turn is going to lead to no rhythm on the offensive side of the ball, and now you're left with a 1-3 record. So far, a quarter of a way through the season, I can't even recognize this Wildcat football team because what I've been watching is not what I'm used to. They look like they don't have an identity. They're not playing with the edge K-State is known for. I've been really disappointed in what I've been watching. There's still a lot of ball left in the season, but I don't know if they can turn it around, especially with the gruesome 4-game stretch of conference play coming up in a couple of weeks. I need to get the smell of disappointment off of my computer, so let's take a look at some teams who have exceeded expectations and been surprisingly good 25% through the 2025 college football season. So I know some people had the Indiana Hoosiers making some noise this year, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't surprised with how good they look so far this season. I was a little worried about them after their game to open up the year versus Old Dominion, only winning 27-14, mainly because you expect a team to usually open up the year with a blowout. I will admit though, the Hoosiers were able to move the ball all over the Monarchs, totaling 502 yards and having the ball for nearly 20 minutes more. And they missed a field goal and got stopped on 4th and goal twice, so the final score of this game could have easily been 44-14. Old Domino looks pretty decent as well, currently sitting with a record of 2-1 coming off of a huge win against Virginia Tech. After that game to open up the season, Indiana was able to quiet me really quick because they would dominate their next 2 opponents, winning 56-9 against Kennesaw State and 73-0 versus Indiana State. With their new quarterback Fernando Mendoza replacing Curtis Rourke, and I know it's early, but he looks just as good, maybe even better. His play has gotten better and better each week, with his most recent game versus 9th-ranked Illinois Fighting Illini being his best outing of the season so far, passing for 267 yards and 5 touchdowns while only throwing 2 incompletions in their 63-10 win over Illinois. To keep it a Tampa Bay buck with you, one of the main reasons I added the Hoosiers into this video was because of how good they looked against the 9th-ranked Fighting Illini. From the first kick to the last snap, I don't think the Hoosiers were ever really in any jeopardy of losing this game. Starting in the second quarter, the Hoosiers offense would rattle off 7 straight drives that ended in touchdowns. Let that sink in, 7 straight scoring drives on a top 10 football team. It's 2025 and Indiana is dropping 60 on top 10 teams. What a time to be alive. The Indiana offense was lights out, totaling 578 yards on offense with, get this, 312 of those yards coming on the ground. The offense was unstoppable, but the defense was immovable. Besides that early touchdown in the first quarter, they would pretty much shut down the Illinois offense, holding them to 161 total yards and allowing only 2 rushing yards the whole game. This Hoosier football team looks legit. Like I already said, their offense is outstanding, currently ranked as the 3rd best scoring offense in the country, averaging a nasty 54.8 points per game, with the man heading the offense at quarterback in Mendoza playing outstanding, already passing for just shy of 1,000 yards with 16 total touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Hold on, I'm not done yet though, because it just doesn't stop with the Hoosiers offense, as their defense might be even better, currently ranked as the 5th best scoring defense, only allowing 8.3 points per game, which is nutty, but it gets even nuttier, with them being ranked as the 3rd best defense in the country, when it comes to total defense only allowing about 205 yards a game. I think it's time to give Kirk Cinetti the respect he deserves. He's quickly becoming one of the best coaches in the country, and the turnaround job he did is the stuff of legend. Why couldn't you have came to Florida? The Hoosiers currently are ranked 11th in the country, with their next big test coming in a couple Saturdays, where they'll be headed to the zoo to face off against the 6th-ranked Oregon Ducks. I can't wait to see that matchup. Potential college game day game of the week, who knows? I will say though, before we wrap this entry up, that game on the road at Iowa in a week is going to be one that I'm tuned into, because Iowa at home is always a tough test. Other than that, I've been extremely impressed and surprised with how good Indiana has looked so far this season. But I do have a little theory that I'll bring up when we start talking about the next team up, who I've been impressed and surprised by. Man, I really didn't want to have to do this, but it's only right. Even though every bone in my body is telling me to just skip past this team. It's not like the viewers will notice, but I've already learned my lesson. When it comes to things like this, you guys don't miss anything. So I'm sorry, Billy Napier. I know you're going to kick me out of the fan club, but I have to talk about the Florida State Seminoles. One of the hottest teams and most surprising teams in the country so far a quarter of a way through the season. Now, I'll be the first to come out and say it. I didn't think the Noles were going to be anywhere as incompetent as last year, but I'd be lying if I said I expected them to be 3-0 and ranked as the 8th best team in the country at this point in the season. Let's call it what it is. None of us expected Alabama to lose to Florida State, but hey, it happened. And Florida State just didn't beat Alabama, they dominated them. I legit couldn't believe what I was seeing, but hey, I guess there's some things that don't change, and that is when Gus Malzahn has a running quarterback and he faces off against Bama, you can all but guarantee Gus takes the dub regardless of who the coach is. The offense cooked Bama in week 1, but what really stood out to me was the defense. Alabama had less than 100 rushing yards, and their quarterback finished the game with a QBR of about 55. I guess quarterback Thomas Castellanos is a good fit at Florida State. I saw a lot of negative preseason talk about him, and I know we talked a little shit before the season, but so far I guess he's backed it up. Sitting with 594 passing yards on the year with 3 touchdowns, as well as rushing for about 130 with another 3 tutties on top of that. The sample size might not be that much, as the Noles have only played in 3 games, with only one of those matchups being against a P4 school, but numbers don't lie, and if everyone could run all up and down the field on weaker competition, then they'd do it, but they don't, especially the Florida Gators. Florida State currently sits at the top in all of college football for total offense, averaging 628 yards a game and 58 points every time they step on the field. I think the scariest part about that is they're doing it in different ways, averaging about 265 through the air and an insane 363 on the ground a game. Actually, I lied. The scariest part is how fast they turned everything around. Last year, guess where FSU ranked in total offense in all of college football? I'll wait. 131st out of 134 teams. From 131st to 1st. That has to be one of the highest increases in offense productivity I've ever seen, especially in that short of a time span. But it's not just the offense making such a massive jump, it's the defense as well, with them sitting currently ranked as the 21st best defense in the country when it comes to total defense. Last year, they were ranked 87th. Florida State has a game coming up this Friday versus Virginia that they should win, and let's just say they do. They'll be sitting at 4-0 with their next game up being a huge ACC conference matchup against their rivals, the second-ranked Miami Hurricanes. Man, that game should be fun and will definitely show us a lot about this Florida State football team. Overall, they've been very impressive to start off the 2025 college football season, and have easily been one of the most surprising teams this year. I have a little theory as to why they're playing so good, so here it is. Basically, in Lee Corso's retirement season from College Game Day, all of the schools he has major ties with are currently undefeated. Florida State being 3-0, Indiana being 4-0, and Louisville being 3-0. I'm probably going to make a video about that if they all win this weekend because I find that pretty interesting. And FYI, I still hate you, Florida State. You're going down to Florida at the end of the season. Probably not. Let's talk about another disappointing team really quick. You know it's hard being a Gator fan nowadays, but shit, it might be even harder to be a Clemson fan. Y'all knew it was coming. Pause. This 2025 Clemson football team has probably been one of the most disappointing teams so far in college football. From being ranked 4th in the country to begin the season, to now sitting with a pathetic record of 1-3. I really wanted Clemson to do good this year. I saw a lot of outlets in the preseason had this squad as a potential natty contender, and worst of all, I have this stray cat that sleeps under my car, and I've been feeding it for a while now. Grown a little attached, and guess what that cat is named? Tabo Sweeney. And she just had kittens, so I was really thinking Clemson was this year's team of destiny. Fast forward to them barely taking down Troy, being down 16-3 at halftime, to losing to Georgia Tech and Syracuse. This team has real problems, especially with the way they start games. In their last 3 games, Clemson has been down at least 13 at some point in the match. And with how bad this offense has been this year, ranking 88th in total offense, they can't afford to be starting games as slow as they have. All of that really wouldn't be too big of a problem if their defense was locked in, and their starting quarterback Cade Klubnik was playing the type of ball we all expected him to play this year. But the defense has been uncharacteristically unreliable, ranking 77th in total defense, giving up 362 yards a game. I've watched a lot of Clemson football throughout the years, and this 2025 football team just seems off. I want to talk about their QB, Cade Klubnik, a little bit more. Now, I'm not going to come out and say he's been playing like trash because he hasn't. Currently sitting on the season with 969 yards and 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. He's been good, but not great. Most years I feel like Clemson could get away with slightly above average QB play because they've always had the best defense in the ACC most years. But with how mid their D has been this year, they really need Cade to bring them home in these big ball games, and he hasn't been able to do that at all this season. I really don't know how things get much better for Clemson. They haven't looked good against inferior competition. The pressure is probably as high as it's ever been at Clemson, with Dabo potentially being on the hot seat. And all of that outside noise. I mean, look, I'm putting them in this video calling them the most disappointing team so far this season. And I know I'm not the only one. There's plenty of other pages and platforms saying the exact same thing. Shit, I'm pretty sure I even fell for the fool's gold because I picked them to make the damn natty. Yeah, y'all are in for a long season. Things need to change and fast. Although you're 1-3, and I know this sounds crazy, but Clemson could still make a run for the playoffs if they win out and they get lucky. Who knows? I certainly don't. Well, if there's one thing I know, it's that the Tigers have been a disappointment a quarter of a way through the season. The 2025 college football season is shaping up to be one of the craziest seasons in college football history. You have teams like Indiana dropping 60 bombs on top 10 teams, and Vanderbilt, yes, Vanderbilt is 4-0 with a top 20 offense and a top 25 defense. This is very selfish to me, but I need Vandy to win this week versus Utah, and Alabama to win against Georgia so we can have a 5-0 Vandy team matching up against a highly ranked 4-1 Alabama squad. I feel like that game might feed college football fans for generations. Alright, so Vanderbilt has looked incredible so far this season, with their standout win obviously being their 31-7 win on the road against the 11th ranked South Carolina Gamecocks. Lenore Sellers did get knocked out early in the game, but Vandy did what they were supposed to do, especially Diego Pavia, who would pass for 2 touchdowns in this victory. I've seen him play a couple of times, but watching him versus the Gamecocks, I couldn't help but think this dude plays just like Johnny Manziel. Dude is a legit X factor in primetime TV. Every time the ball is in his hand, you just know something absurd is about to happen. This Vandy squad has found themselves an identity as underdogs, although they won't be dogs for much longer. And the job head coach Clark Lee has done with this program has been nothing short of legendary. He has his offense playing lights out football, currently ranked 8th in the country for scoring offense, averaging 47.5 a game. While on the flip side, their defense is holding teams to 12.5 points per game, while holding the opposition to about 70 rushing yards a game, which ranks 11th in the country. Sheesh. In just about every important category, the Commodores find themselves ranked somewhere in the top 25. And the 18th ranked Commodores don't look like they're going to be slowing down much this season. Like I said, their game versus Alabama in 2 weeks or so is going to tell us all we need to know about this 2025 Vanderbilt football team. Overall, I've been more than impressed and surprised with how good Vandy has been and looked a quarter of a way through the college football season. This squad looks for real on both sides of the ball, and after their season last year, they've already proved to us the Commodores are not just a bye week in the SEC anymore. Games versus Vanderbilt are now circled on teams' calendars and given the utmost attention. It's 2025 and college football makes no sense. I love it.